Hi, this is RN Bhaskar from BKBB, which is an acronym for Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. And Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein, as you know, is a channel that brings you every week a policy analysis, an occasional story, and an occasional conversation. Incidentally, do watch the story that comes up in a day tomorrow, and that is going to be on Kawasti Jahangir, a story that very few people know. Anyway, this channel is a daily channel and it focuses on news. Not just news, but news behind the news. And we take 2, 3, 4 titles that we think that we need to discuss and we bring them to you. This is a 5th channel. This is a 5th episode. And every week, for all weekdays, we will be there except Saturdays and Sundays. And today, let me show you the titles that we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about how automobile sales have slumped. And then we're going to talk about how India's wealthy are growing in numbers and in prosperity. And then we'll talk about telecom, the telecom sector, how spectrum charges will go. But that was the titles. Today, my co-anchor in this program is Katya. There is Katya, and she will be talking about some of the things that we will be discussing today. So let's begin with the first story. The first story is interesting for many reasons. Auto retail sales slump. And it's not the total number. Every sector, look at the chart in front of you. And the chart will show you that almost every sector has started falling in sales. Look at the last column on the right-hand side, and you'll see the negative flow. The worst hit has been scooters and motorcycles. And in addition to that, when an automobile sector slumps, expect a low pickup of demand for steel, because steel goes to automobiles. Aluminium, paints. So the ripple effect of automobile sales slumping will mean a fall in almost all the sectors, one after another after another. There's also one more thing. Watch the 2nd of April next year. Now, that is the very next month. And if Trump's threat of 25% import duty on automobiles takes place, the surplus capacity in automobiles is always exported. That surplus capacity gets also stuck somewhere or the other, which means sales could slump even further. And why are sales slumping? Obviously, poor purchasing power. And why is the purchasing power very slow? Well, it comes back to the same old thing. The government's economic policies have not encouraged growth the way they should. But anyway, that was about the automobile sector. Let's go on to the next story, which is, in a way, a happier story, which is about wealth, about money, how money is growing, at least in some pockets. Katya, can we have your story?
Right, sir. So the India's wealthy, while middle class has a lot to worry about, India's wealthy, there's nothing much to worry about. In 2024, the number of HNIs, which is the people with assets over $10 million, have grown 6%. And then the number is a very interesting 85,698 in 2024. And then if this Knight Frank report is to be believed, India's HNIs are expected to grow at an even quicker clip from 6% to 9%, 9.4% in 2025. And that number is going to hit very close to 1 lakh. And that will be an interesting time for it to see. If you look at it in terms of number of HNIs who reside in India, we are number 4. Like US has most of them, China comes second, Japan has 5.2% of this share of these HNIs. India comes 4th ahead of Germany with 3.7% of them. Considering we are much lower in terms of many other parameters that Germany has, so the wealth imbalance is very, very obvious right now. So Germany only has 3% of them. We have 3.7% population issues notwithstanding. So when it comes to billionaires, we are doing good there too. India now has is home to 191 billionaires, and then yeah, last year 26 of them joined the ranks. This is very good number compared to 7 who were in 2019. And how much wealth do they hold? Cumulatively, they hold 950 billion. If they all wanted to invest in India, then we are in a good position. Again, we rank number 3. So billionaires are fun. So car sales might be a problem, but luxury car sales, nothing to worry about. Back to you, sir.
Absolutely, you're right, Katya. Luxury car sales will zoom, but you see what happens is something very funny. And I was looking at some of the COVID numbers. Pew Research compiled the numbers for India and China. China concentrated on protecting the middle class. It protected its people, and the number of people who became poor did not increase very much.
Right.
The number of rich went down slightly.
Mm.
In India, it is quite different. In India, the only sector that did not fall was the number of rich. The middle class got savaged, and the number of poor expanded dramatically. 71 million people became poor. And it looks like even after that, even after COVID, the government has created plans that benefit the wealthy and not the middle class, and certainly not the poor class. But the poor class isn't affected because they get freebies. The middle class neither gets freebies nor has the money. So it's squeezed from both ends. And the middle class is important because they create the consumption demand. If the middle class doesn't generate money, if the rural class does not generate money, India's growth story is going to be a sad story. But yes, as a friend told me, the top 1% in India will be very happy because we will continue making money. And the HNIs will also continue making money. And remember, if you look at the other reports that come in, you'll find that many of the HNIs, after making money, prefer to go out of India. But that's another story. And so let's go on to the third story. And the third story is something which is very interesting. Today's papers, Financial Express talks about how the government is willing now to reduce spectrum charges. Spectrum user charges, SUC. Why is that interesting? Because for the last 20, 30 years, ever since private telecoms were allowed, the government sold spectrum at phenomenally high rates. And at one point, there was also a scam where spectrum was given away preferentially. But leave that scam. The government believes that spectrum is a place where it can make money. And because spectrum charges are very high, some companies fell, some companies survived. And one of the biggest players, which is still struggling, is Vodafone Idea. Because it finds the spectrum charges very, very high. So why is there a change of heart? Is the government becoming kinder, gentler, warmer? Maybe yes. But I suspect that someone has twisted the government's arm to make sure that Starlink is allowed in India, and India has been persuaded to reduce spectrum charges for Starlink. Obviously, the government can't reduce the spectrum charges only for Starlink. So every telecom company benefits, and competition will grow, which is good for consumers. But interesting times ahead for the telecom sector. Whether Starlink actually comes in or not is another issue. We do not know what the outcome will be. Thanks again. That finishes the three stories that we wanted to talk about today. And yes, I can see questions coming in. And so let's take the first question that's come in. Is the growth in HNI is good for India? Growth in money is always good for any country. What is not good for India is if only HNIs grow and not the middle class and not the poorer class and not the rural sector. Growth of HNIs is required because when they have the money, they can invest. But to invest in India requires a good business climate. So there are issues. It's good that we have more HNIs, but it's not good that everyone holistically cannot become as rich. Okay, that's the second question. Is there any way to revive demand for the automobile sector? As Katya mentioned, the sector that's grinning is the luxury car segment. That is a segment because the ultra rich can afford it. And these companies will sell only 5 or 6 cars a year in India and they're happy. But what is interesting is that unless the other cars also start selling, you'll have corollary effects on steel, on plastic, on rubber, because the wheels in the car go in. Other industries will get hurt. So, is there any way to revive that industry? Yes. If you reduce government taxes, so cars become more affordable. Cars have a huge excise duty. Almost 50% of cars' value is government taxes. If the car prices fall by 50%, people will love it. The demand will go up. And the second is increasing purchasing power. There's a very interesting question. How many of the HNIs stay in India? Many HNIs stay in India because India is a place where they can make money. Government policies suit them. You can tinker around with certain laws because you're powerful. And many of them are traders who make money by importing from overseas to India, which is why the government likes the import lobby very much. But there's a section of HNIs that have become HNIs and don't like the business environment in India and are leaving India. Conventionally, for the past 20 years, every HNI family made sure that one of the family members was an NRI, so that all the money could be shown in the NRI's name and they could escape the tax dragnet. Today, entire families are leaving, and that is worrisome. Okay, there's one more question. Okay, we'll take this as the last question. What are the consequences of reduced spectrum charges? Consequences are there'll be more competition. Another consequence is if Starlink is allowed to come in, expect the froth to get more severe because Starlink will be competing against players like OneWeb of Airtel, and Reliance has its own spectrum and its own low orbit satellites, which it wants to bring in partnership with the ISRO. So Elon Musk is going to have competition, but Elon Musk is from America, and it looks like the government is going soft on every issue concerning America. So yes, there will be competition. Yes, the consumer should be happy because it means lower charges for them. It means more telecom services will come up, but more telecom services coming up without good regulations. Look at the number of spam calls you get. Look at the number of spam emails you get. There's no regulator for e-commerce. Recently, I had a problem where the websites of government agencies like BMC did not function well. You need all these things in place. Anyway, thank you very much for sending in your questions, and thank you very much for being here. We like to have you with us every morning. Tomorrow we won't be there because tomorrow is a Saturday. Nor will we be there on Sunday. But see you on Monday morning, 8:15 a.m. and have your coffee or bring your coffee with you and watch us. We will talk to you. Thank you for being with us. Take care. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves.